The
Oh dear,
crystal
your dress.
champagne flute
It's
fractured
all
in
right.
his
Are you
hand.
okay?
I'm
A
fine.
hairline crack.
Let's get out of here.
Then
Good
another.
idea.
Then a spider web of
Please,
brakes
don't go.
spreading across
I
the
have to.
glass
It's
like
important.
ice forming on a
When will
winter
you
lake.
return?
I will. I
Grayson
promise.
Blackwell didn't notice.
We have to
His
leave.
eyes were locked across
Now.
the
I
ballroom
know.
floor of
Follow
the
me.
Kennedy Center, where
Where are we
600
going?
of
Away
Washington's
from here.
elite had gathered for the annual Congressional Military Gala. Orchestra music swelled. Chandeliers cast dancing light across marble and silk and diamonds worth more than most Americans earned in a lifetime. None of it registered. He saw only one thing. Senator Hadrian Cortez stood in the center of the dance floor holding Vivian's gloved hand. The senator raised it slowly to his lips. Deliberate, theatrical, every eye in the ballroom watching. The kiss lasted 4 seconds. An eternity. Blood seeped between Grayson's fingers where broken glass had cut his palm. It mixed with champagne dripping onto white marble. He didn't feel the pain. He felt only the tightness in his jaw from clenching hard enough to crack teeth. Felt only the thunder of his heartbeat drowning out the orchestra. Felt only rage. And beneath the rage, something worse. Something he'd spent 5 months pretending didn't exist. Terror. The terror of losing something he'd told himself he didn't want. Across the ballroom, Vivian's eyes found his. Wide, startled, conflicted. Senator Cortez smiled. Grayson's world shattered like the glass in his hand. Vivian Sterling sat in what remained of her family's Boston townhouse and calculated exactly how much pride cost. $4.8 million, as it turned out. That was the number on the final sheet of the stack of legal documents spread across the dining room table, the mahogany table where she'd eaten Sunday dinners as a child, where her mother had taught her to use the correct fork for each course, where her father, Senator William Sterling, had once held court with visiting congressmen and foreign ambassadors. Now the table was covered in debt collection notices, court summons, and bankruptcy filings. Vivian's younger sister Lily sat across from her. 17 years old, MIT, acceptance letter in her hands, full scholarship, 4 years of tuition, room and board, her future secured, except it wasn't. I can defer, Lily said quietly. Her voice carried the careful control of someone trying very hard not to cry. Work for a year, maybe 2, help with the… No. Vivian's voice was flat, final. Belle, we're losing the house. Mom's medical bills from before she passed are still… I said no. Outside, rain lashed against the windows. March in Boston, gray and cold and miserable. The heating had been turned off 3 weeks ago. They wore sweaters indoors now, used candles when the electricity bill came due. This was what happened when a senator got caught taking bribes from defense contractors. This was what happened when shame and scandal and federal prosecutors descended on a family like locusts. This was what happened when your father chose money over integrity and prison over facing what he'd done. Vivian looked at her sister. Really looked at her. Lily had their mother's eyes. Bright, intelligent, full of promise. Their mother, who died of cancer 2 years ago, had made Vivian promise something in those final hours. One thing. Let her choose her own path. Don't let William's mistakes destroy her future. Promise me. Vivian had promised. She intended to keep that promise, even if it cost her everything. The doorbell rang. Vivian rose, her worn cashmere sweater, once expensive, now pilled and faded, hanging loose on her frame. She'd lost 15 pounds in 6 months. Stress had a way of killing appetite. The man at the door wore a suit that cost more than the Sterling family's remaining bank balance. Gray hair, sharp eyes. The look of someone who dealt in problems and solutions. Miss Sterling, I'm Robert Chen from Hartwell & Associates. The law firm her mother's best friend had recommended. The one that dealt in what they called strategic alliances. What everyone else called arranged marriages for the desperate. Please, Vivian said. Come in. They sat in the front parlor. Lily disappeared upstairs. The lawyer opened his briefcase with the crisp efficiency of a man who did this often. I'll be direct, Miss Sterling. Your situation is untenable. The debt is substantial. Your father's legal fees alone have consumed what remained of your family's liquid assets. The house will be seized within 75 days. Your sister's education fund was tied up in accounts that were frozen during the investigation. I'm aware of all of this, Vivian said. Her voice stayed level. She'd learned control from her mother. How to sit with your back straight and your hands folded and your face composed even when your world was ending. I represent a rather unique service, Chen continued. We match individuals in financial distress with those seeking mutually beneficial arrangements. Marriage, to be specific. You're a matchmaker for the desperate. I prefer facilitator of strategic alliances. But yes, essentially. And what does this cost? Nothing if the arrangement is successful. We take a percentage of the financial settlement, 5%. Vivian did the math instantly. 5% of 4.8 million, $240,000. Who are these men, she asked, the ones seeking strategic alliances? Successful individuals who need a wife for professional or social reasons, but prefer the clarity of a contractual arrangement. No emotional complications, no romantic expectations, clean, simple, mutually beneficial. Clean, simple, like selling yourself was either of those things. I have a potential match, Chen said. He pulled a folder from his briefcase. Brigadier General Grayson Blackwell, age 32, from a distinguished military family. Significant family wealth and a rather pressing problem. He slid a photograph across the table. The man in the photo wore a dress uniform. Medals gleamed across his chest. Dark hair with touches of gray at the temples. Sharp jawline, cold blue eyes that seemed to look through the camera rather than at it. Handsome in the way glaciers were beautiful, magnificent, and utterly unforgiving. The Pentagon has implemented a new policy, Chen explained. Senior officers being considered for promotion to major ranks must demonstrate family stability. General Blackwell has 90 days to marry, or he'll be reassigned to administrative duties. For a man like him, that would be career suicide. So he needs a wife. And you need financial relief. The general is prepared to offer full debt clearance, a monthly allowance of $60,000, and establishment of an education trust for your sister, in exchange for a 24-month marriage contract. Vivian stared at the photograph. 2 years of her life. That was the price of Lily's future. There would be conditions, Chen said. The general is very specific about his requirements. Separate living quarters. No interference in his military career. Strict boundaries around. When can I meet him? Chen smiled. I'll arrange it for tomorrow. Grayson Blackwell stood at the window of his study in the Blackwell estate and watched the Atlantic Ocean crash against the rocks below. The estate had been in his family for 250 years. Georgian architecture, 12 bedrooms, formal gardens that required a staff of 6 to maintain. Every Blackwell male since the Revolutionary War had served in the military. Every generation had added something to the house. A wing, a library, a ballroom. All of it felt like a museum. Beautiful, historic, empty. Grayson had inherited it at age 14 when his parents died in a training accident overseas. An IED in Kandahar. They'd been serving together, died together. Left him alone with a house full of history and a legacy he had no choice but to honor. The door opened behind him. Sir, Edmund, the family's butler for 40 years, entered, carrying a silver tray with tea service and mail. The afternoon post. Grayson didn't turn from the window. Anything requiring immediate attention. A letter from the Pentagon, official seal. That made him turn. Edmund held out an envelope. Department of Defense letterhead. Grayson opened it with the efficiency of someone who'd been reading military correspondence since childhood. He scanned the contents once, then again more slowly. New policy directive. Senior officers above 06 rank being considered for promotion to flag officer positions must demonstrate personal stability through established family arrangements. Unmarried officers above age 30 must marry within 120 days or face reassignment to non-combat administrative roles. Effective immediately. Grayson set the letter down very carefully. They're forcing marriages now, he said quietly. So it would appear, sir. This is about the congressional hearings. They want to avoid another scandal, another general caught in an affair, another embarrassing divorce splashed across the media. Undoubtedly. Grayson walked to his desk, sat down in the leather chair that had belonged to his father, and his grandfather, and his great-grandfather. Every man in this family had sacrificed for duty, every single one. What if I refuse, he asked, though he already knew the answer. Administrative assignment, sir. Quite likely a desk position at the Pentagon, no field command, no strategic planning, no advancement beyond your current rank. 20 years of military service. Deployments in 3 different theaters. Commendations. Citations. A reputation as one of the finest strategic minds in the armed forces. All of it rendered meaningless by a desk job. There are services available, sir, Edmund said carefully, for situations such as these. Grayson looked up sharply. The old butler stood with perfect posture, his expression neutral. But there was something in his eyes. Understanding, perhaps, or pity. What kind of services? Strategic marriage arrangements, contractual agreements, mutually beneficial. Several of your colleagues have utilized them. Quite successfully, I'm told. You're suggesting I buy a wife. I'm suggesting you address the situation with the same strategic planning You'd apply to any military operation, sir. Grayson leaned back in his chair. Marriage, he'd never seriously considered it, not after what he'd seen. His parents, who'd loved each other, deeply killed because they chose duty over safety. His commanding officer destroyed when his wife left him during a deployment. His fellow officers ground down by the impossible balance between service and family. Emotion was a liability. Love was a vulnerability. Both were things Grayson Blackwell could not afford. But a contract, a clear agreement with defined terms and boundaries, that was something he understood. Arrange a meeting, he said finally. Find someone suitable, someone who understands this is a business arrangement, someone intelligent enough to handle the social requirements without expecting anything beyond what's outlined in the contract. Very good, sir. I'll contact Hartwell and Associates immediately. They're quite discreet. Edmund moved toward the door, then paused. Sir, if I may, your father once told me that the hardest battles are the ones we fight with ourselves, against what we believe we should want versus what we actually need. And what did you tell him? That sometimes the greatest act of courage is admitting we need something at all. Edmund left. Grayson sat alone in his study, surrounded by military histories and strategic texts and the weight of 250 years of family legacy. He picked up the Pentagon letter again. 120 days. He'd fought and won battles in less time. This would be no different. The Boston Public Library was neutral ground, neither his territory nor hers. Somewhere public enough to be safe, private enough to be discreet. Vivian arrived 10 minutes early. Force of habit. Her mother had taught her that punctuality was power. The one who arrives first controls the space. She wore her best suit, navy blue, tailored. From before the scandal, when she'd worked at the State Department and needed to look the part, it was slightly loose now. But it was clean and professional and gave her the armor she needed. She'd chosen a table in the Bates Hall. Vaulted ceilings, long rows of reading tables, the kind of grandeur that reminded you that knowledge and civilization mattered. She needed that reminder today. At precisely 3 o'clock, a man entered the hall. Vivian recognized him immediately from the photograph. But photos lied. They captured appearance but missed presence. Grayson Blackwell moved like someone who'd spent his entire life knowing exactly where his body was in space. Military bearing, controlled, every step deliberate. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car used to be worth. Perfectly tailored. Conservative. The kind of suit that said power without needing to shout about it. He was taller than she'd expected. 6'2", maybe 6'3", broad shoulders, the kind of build that came from actual physical training, not gym vanity. But it was his face that stopped her. Sharp, angular, a jaw that looked like it had been cut from granite, eyes the color of Arctic ice, and completely, utterly closed. This was a man who'd learned to show nothing, feel nothing, want nothing. He spotted her, approached with the same measured steps. Miss Sterling. His voice was deeper than she'd expected, controlled, each word precisely placed. General Blackwell. Grayson, please. We're considering a contract, not a military operation. Aren't we? She asked. Considering a military operation, I mean. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Surprise, maybe, or approval. He sat down across from her. Didn't ask permission. Didn't need to. Robert Chen materialized from somewhere, placed a folder on the table between them, and disappeared. I'll be direct, Grayson said. I need a wife for career advancement. You need financial relief. This can be mutually beneficial. Clean, efficient, a business arrangement with clear terms. How romantic, Vivian said. Romance isn't the objective. Clearly. She opened the folder. Inside was a contract, 12 pages, single-spaced, legal language dense enough to require a translator. But Vivian had worked in government. She knew how to read contracts. She read this one, carefully, slowly. Grayson sat in silence, watching her, patient. She'd give him that he didn't rush. 25 minutes passed. When she finished, she looked up. This is very thorough. I'm a thorough person. I can see that. 15 rules. Separate living quarters in different wings of your estate. No interference in your military career. Mandatory attendance at 4 social functions per month. No public scandals. No romantic or sexual relationships outside the marriage. Financial support of $60,000 per month, plus full clearance of my family's debt and establishment of an education trust for my sister. Duration of 24 months followed by quiet divorce with no contest. That's correct. It's very transactional. That's the point. Vivian set the contract down. Rule 2, she said, No interference in your military career unless consultation is specifically requested. I'd like to modify that. Grayson's eyebrows rose fractionally, the first real expression she'd seen. How and change it to no interference in military affairs unless consultation is requested. Remove the word specifically, it's redundant, and add a clause that I may offer unsolicited policy analysis on matters that intersect with my area of expertise, which is international relations and foreign policy. I have a master's degree from Georgetown. I spent 3 years at the State Department before my father's scandal made me unemployable. Grayson studied her, really studied her. For the first time, she felt like he was seeing her rather than assessing a contract term. You want to be useful, he said. I want to not be decorative furniture. Fair enough. He pulled a pen from his jacket, drew a line through Rule 2, wrote in her modification in precise handwriting. Anything else? Rule 8, appropriate public behavior. Define parameters, appropriate according to whose standards? The standards of Washington society. Washington society's standards shift based on who's setting them. Be specific. They spent the next 30 minutes refining contract language. Vivian found 3 more ambiguities, 2 potential legal loopholes, 1 clause that could be interpreted in ways that disadvantaged her. Grayson fixed them all. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair. You're more thorough than my Pentagon lawyers. I'm signing away 2 years of my life. I'll be thorough. We'll do well together, Miss Sterling. It's a business arrangement, General. Well isn't the goal. Survival is. He almost smiled. Almost. When can you be ready? For what? The wedding. We need to move quickly. I have less than 90 days. Allowing for background checks and legal processing, I'd prefer to marry within 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 14 days until she became Mrs. Grayson Blackwell. Until she moved into his estate. Until he started living the life built on rules and contracts and careful distance. I can be ready, she said. Grayson pulled out another pen, signed the contract, slid it across the table. Vivian stared at her name typed at the bottom. The space for her signature. This was it, the moment of choice. She thought of Lily, of MIT, of her mother's dying wish. She signed. Their hands met briefly as he took the contract back. His fingers were warm, calloused, the hands of someone who did more than sit at a desk. I'll have my attorney file the necessary paperwork, Grayson said. We'll marry at City Hall in Boston, 2 weeks from today, 3 o'clock. Keep it simple. Just witnesses. How romantic, she said again. This time he definitely almost smiled. The wedding took place on a gray Tuesday afternoon in March. Boston City Hall, 3rd floor. A clerk's office that smelled like old paper and floor wax. Vivian wore a navy suit, the same one from the library, her only good option. She'd sold everything else to pay bills. Grayson wore his dress uniform, stars on his shoulders, medals on his chest, the full weight of military tradition. They both looked like they were attending a funeral. Edmund stood as Grayson's witness, silent, dignified. His eyes sad in a way that made Vivian wonder what he'd seen in his 40 years of service to the Blackwell family. Lily stood as Vivian's witness, 17 years old and trying not to cry, trying to be brave for her older sister who was sacrificing everything. The clerk was efficient, bored. He'd done this 100 times. Do you, Grayson Andrew Blackwell, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Flat, emotionless, a status report. Do you, Vivian Marie Sterling, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Vivian's throat closed. She looked at Grayson, at those cold blue eyes that revealed nothing. This was her choice, her decision, her salvation and her cage. I do. Her voice didn't shake. Small victory. By the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Awkward pause. They both leaned in, met in the middle. A brief press of lips, perfunctory, the minimum required. Grayson's lips were warm. That surprised her. She'd expected ice. The clerk had them sign the marriage certificate. Vivian watched her name transform. Sterling to Blackwell, identity traded for security. Congratulations, the clerk said with all the enthusiasm of someone announcing a weather forecast. Grayson shook Edmund's hand. Vivian hugged Lily, who whispered against her shoulder. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did. I love you. I love you too. Now go ace your finals and get ready for MIT. They separated. Grayson turned to Vivian. Edmund will drive you to the estate. I have a briefing at 1400 hours. I'll be home by 1830. Home. As if she had any idea what that meant anymore. Of course, she said. He nodded. Left. Vivian stood in the clerk's office, legally married, completely alone. Edmund appeared at her elbow. Mrs. Blackwell, he said gently. Shall we, Mrs. Blackwell? That was her now. She followed him to a black Mercedes, slid into the back seat, watched Boston disappear as they drove south. The Blackwell estate sat on the coast of Cape Cod, 90 minutes from the city. Edmund made polite conversation. Vivian gave polite responses. Neither of them meant any of it. When they arrived, she understood why Grayson had called it an estate rather than a house. Georgian architecture, white columns, black shutters. Perched on a cliff, overlooking the Atlantic like some kind of monument to permanence. It was beautiful. It was intimidating. It looked like a place where warmth went to die. Edmund gave her the tour. Main hall with portraits of Blackwell ancestors. Men in military uniforms stretching back 2 centuries. All of them stern, unyielding. The weight of duty in every painted face. Grand staircase splitting left and right, east wing and west wing, hers and his, separate. Formal dining room with a table that could seat 24 people. Library with floor-to-ceiling military histories and strategic texts. Everything perfect, everything precise, everything utterly impersonal. Your quarters are in the east wing, Edmund said. He led her up the stairs to the right. Double doors opened into what could only be called an apartment. Master bedroom, guest room, private office, sitting room with a fireplace, bathroom with a clawfoot tub. All of it decorated in muted creams and grays and blues, expensive, tasteful, completely devoid of personality. The general had the rooms prepared according to specifications he believed you'd find comfortable, Edmund said. If anything doesn't suit, please let me know. Vivian walked to the closet. It was full. Dresses, suits, casual wear, all in her size. All in colors that would photograph well. All appropriate for a general's wife. None of it chosen by her. She opened drawers. Undergarments. Jewelry. Cosmetics. Everything she might need. Everything except autonomy. The general is very thorough, Edmund said quietly. So I'm learning. She found her suitcase waiting on the bed, the one she'd packed that morning. Everything she owned in the world fit in a single carry-on bag. Her mother's music box, photos of Lily, a few worn books, the contract. She set the music box on the nightstand, wound it, let Claire de Lune fill the silence. Edmund stood in the doorway. Dinner is served at 1900 hour, Mrs. Blackwell. The general values punctuality. Of course he does. If you need anything at all, please ring. I'm here to help make your transition as smooth as possible. Thank you, Edmund. He left. Vivian sat on the edge of the bed in her perfect room, in her perfect prison, and listened to the music box wind down. She didn't cry. She'd learned long ago that tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. At 6:45, she changed into one of the dresses from the closet. Simple, elegant, appropriate. At 6:55, she made her way downstairs. The formal dining room was lit by candles and a crystal chandelier. The table, that massive, absurd table, had been set for 2. At opposite ends, 18 feet of polished mahogany between them. Grayson entered at precisely 7 o'clock. He'd changed from his uniform into civilian clothes. Still formal, charcoal slacks, white shirt, no tie. Mrs. Blackwell, he inclined his head. General? Grayson, we're married. Formality isn't necessary in private. Isn't it? He had no response to that. They sat. Staff appeared, set courses in front of them, disappeared like ghosts. First course, soup. The only sounds were silver spoons on china, the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, waves crashing against rocks outside. Second course, duck. Grayson checked his watch twice. Vivian studied the portraits on the walls. Dead Blackwells, judging the living. Third course, dessert. Your quarters are satisfactory, Grayson asked. The first words spoken in 40 minutes. They're sufficient. If you require anything, I don't. Silence resumed. When the meal ended, when they'd finished performing the ritual of dinner, Grayson stood. I have reports to review. Breakfast is at 0600 if you choose to join. I'll consider it. He left. Vivian sat alone at the vast table surrounded by empty chairs and dead ancestors, and the reality of 729 days remaining on her contract. She went back to her room, changed into pajamas that someone else had chosen, lay in a bed that smelled like fresh linen and nothing else. On her nightstand, she found an envelope. Inside, a handwritten note in precise script. Rule 16A: either party may terminate this arrangement at any time if personal happiness is threatened. Neither party should be imprisoned by circumstance. GB Vivian held the note for a long time. Was it kindness, an escape clause, or insurance for him, or mercy for her? Across the house in the West Wing, a light was visible under Grayson's study door. He was awake too. Working. Always working. She set the note beside the music box. 2 years. 728 days now. She could survive anything for 728 days. Couldn't she? The routine established itself with military precision. 5:30 in the morning, Vivian woke to the sound of Grayson running. She'd watch from her window as he pounded 8 miles along the beach, rain or shine, moving like someone running from something he couldn't name. By 6:30, he'd be showered and having breakfast. Alone. Black coffee, oatmeal, Pentagon briefing papers. By 7, he'd be gone. Vivian would have her own breakfast 30 minutes later. French press coffee, toast, her own research. They lived in the same house but existed in parallel universes. Days followed identical patterns. Grayson at the Pentagon or military installations, strategy meetings, command duties, the weight of defending a nation. Vivian at the estate, exploring grounds that felt like a museum. Reading in the library. Video calls with Lily, who was thriving at MIT now, working on policy papers that no one would ever publish because her name was toxic. At 6:30 exactly, Grayson would return. She'd hear his car, his footsteps, the sound of him changing clothes in the West Wing. At 7, they'd have dinner, 18 feet apart. Week 1, 0 words exchanged beyond good evening and good night. Week 2, weather commentary. Quite cold today. Yes, quite. Week 3, schedule coordination. I'll be traveling Tuesday. Noted. Week 4, household matters. The heat in the library seems inadequate. I'll have maintenance address it. Never feelings, never personal matters, never anything that might crack the ice. But small things shifted. Week 2, Vivian came down to breakfast to find the coffee pot already made. French roast. Her preference. Not the black coffee Grayson drank. Week 3, she left a book in the library, a military history she'd been reading. The next day, she found a bookmark with a note in Grayson's handwriting. Chapter 7 has flawed premise. See Hart's counter-argument on page 247. Week 4, she left a response note. Hart assumes unlimited resources. Chapter 7 works with constraints. Week 5, a 30-second conversation at dinner about the book. Week 6, Grayson poured wine for her before pouring his own. Week 7, Sunday afternoon. Vivian was reading in the library when Grayson entered for a book. He stopped, saw her curled in what was clearly his reading chair by the fire. "That's a good chair," he said. She looked up. "It is. Want it back?" "No, carry on." He took a book from a different shelf. Left. But something in the air had changed. Week 8, they both smiled at the same moment when Edmund dropped a serving spoon with a tremendous crash. The smile lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it happened. Week 9, Vivian discovered Grayson's personal library section. Books he'd clearly read dozens of times, margin notes in his precise handwriting. Sun Tzu's Art of War. Victory without battle is supreme skill. Clausewitz, force is last resort of strategy, not first. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and that space is our power to choose. Well, next to that in smaller writing. But what if you were never taught how to choose, only how to react? Vivian stood in the library for a long time holding that book. Understanding dawning. He wasn't cold, he was caged. By duty, by expectations, by his own armor. Week 10 changed everything. Grayson came to dinner carrying Pentagon briefing folders, set them beside his plate, started reading while he ate. A rule violation. Vivian watched him for 10 minutes. Then Sudan, his head snapped up. "How did you? You left the briefing folder on the hall console yesterday. You're losing operational security, General." Surprise flickered across his face. Real emotion. Brief but there. "And," he asked, "and the proposed response is militarily sound, but politically suicidal." He set down his fork. Actually set it down. Gave her his full attention for the first time in 10 weeks. Explain. She did. 20 minutes on Sudanese political factions, regional alliance structures, economic pressure points, historical precedent, alternative approaches that use policy instead of force. Grayson listened, actually listened, asked questions, challenged her analysis. She pushed back. He conceded 2 points. She conceded 1. 45 minutes passed. Their food went cold. Neither noticed. Finally, Grayson leaned back in his chair. "That's brilliant. Why didn't my team think of that?" Because your team thinks in military terms. I think in policy terms. Different lenses. We should combine lenses more often. Eye contact held. 3 seconds longer than necessary. Both looked away. Mrs. Blackwell. Vivian or Viv, if we're going to collaborate on strategy. Viv, he tested the name. Tomorrow night, there's a situation in the Taiwan Strait. If you're interested, I could use your perspective. Share the intelligence. I'll review it. Good night, Viv. Good night, Grayson. First names after 10 weeks. Small victory. Massive shift. Weeks 11 through 16 transformed their parallel lives into something resembling partnership. Dinners became working sessions. Grayson brought 2 briefing folders, one for him, one for her. They debated strategy, foreign policy, the ethics of intervention. The table shrank. Week 11, 15 feet apart. Week 12, 10 feet. Week 14, 6 feet. Week 16, adjacent seats, across from each other. Close enough to pass documents without standing. Neither acknowledged the migration. Week 14 brought their first real laugh. They were debating cyber warfare ethics. Voices raised. Passionate. Engaged. You can't justify, Vivian started. It's no different than Grace encountered. It's entirely different. The sound of breaking china interrupted them. They both looked up to see a young staff member frozen in horror, shattered teacup at her feet. I'm so sorry, sir. I'll clean. But Grayson was laughing, actually laughing. A real, genuine sound that transformed his face. Vivian joined him. The staff member looked between them, confused but relieved. When the laughter faded, their eyes met. Something had fundamentally changed. Week 15, reaching for the same document. Hands brushed. Electric. Both froze. Grayson, sorry. Viv, it's fine. Neither fine. Both hyper-aware now. Week 16, personal conversation breakthrough. Discussion about military ethics led to family. Grayson asked, why did your father do it? The corruption. He was a decorated senator. Vivian tensed. Long pause. Then, he didn't start corrupt. Started desperate. Defense contractor, threatened to pull out of Massachusetts. 4,000 jobs at risk. He took their money to fast-track the approval. Thought he was saving families. Good intentions. Bad judgment. Exactly what I'm afraid of inheriting. Grayson set down his wineglass. My parents died because they followed orders they disagreed with. Protocol over instinct. Deployed together to a mission my father knew was poorly planned. IED killed them both. His voice stayed level, controlled, but pain leaked through. I'm terrified of inheriting their blind obedience, their inability to choose between duty and survival. Silence. True silence. Not uncomfortable. Shared. So we're both running from family legacies, Viv said quietly, while trapped in an arrangement built on them. Eye contact. Seeing each other, really seeing. Not contract partners, not housemates, humans. Damaged, trying, scared. Grayson's hand moved across the table, halfway. Viv's met it, fingers touching in the middle. Held. 5 seconds. Then Grayson pulled back, clearing his throat. I should review those briefings. The moment passed. But it had happened. Week 18, Grayson visited Colonel Jameson Aldrich at the Pentagon. Aldrich, retired general mentor, closest thing to family Grayson had left. I need advice, Grayson said. Aldrich looked up from his desk. Military or personal? Pause. Personal. Aldrich had set down his pen. In 20 years, you've never asked about personal matters. I've never needed to. What changed? Everything Grayson wanted to say. She changed everything. Instead, I'm married, you know this. Strategic alliance, contract arrangement, 24 months. I'm aware. It was supposed to stay simple, clean, transactional. And it's not simple anymore. Aldrich leaned back, studied him. You're developing feelings. Not a question. I don't know what I'm developing. I only know that dinner has become the best part of my day, that I find myself arranging my schedule to cross paths with her, that the thought of the contract expiring makes my chest feel tight. How does she feel? I have no idea. We don't discuss feelings. We discuss Sudan and Taiwan and military ethics. Sounds like avoidance. Sounds like safety. Aldrich poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed one to Grayson. Your parents loved each other, died together. You saw that as weakness, emotion as liability. So you built walls. Walls keep you safe. Walls keep you alone. He sipped his drink. Vivian is dismantling your walls just by existing. Question is, Will you let her, or will you destroy what you have to maintain control? Grayson had no answer. The contract expires in 18 months, Aldrich continued. If she leaves, then you'll have no legal hold, no recourse, just loss. You need to decide, let her go with grace or fight for her with truth. I don't know how to fight for someone, only against them. Then learn, or lose the only person who's ever broken through. Grayson left the Pentagon at dusk, drove home along the coast. The Blackwell estate appeared on the cliff, lights in the windows now, warm, lived in, because she was there. In the east wing, Vivian stood at her window, watching the ocean, thinking about hands touching across tables, wondering if 18 months was too long or not long enough. She didn't hear the knock until it repeated. Edmund at the door. Mrs. Blackwell, a letter arrived, marked urgent. The envelope was cream-colored, official seal. She opened it, read, read again. What is it? Edmund asked. Senator Hadrian Cortez is coming here. Joint Military Congressional Oversight Review, staying at the estate for 4 days. When Vivian's hands trembled slightly, he arrives in 1 week. Edmund's face went carefully neutral. I see. Do you know him? I know of him. The General and Senator Cortez have history, a promotion they both competed for 5 years ago. The General received it. The Senator did not take it well. So he's coming here for revenge. Or assessment, or both. Edmund paused. Mrs. Blackwell, Senator Cortez has a reputation. He's known for pursuing married women, for collecting them as trophies of a sort. I'm not a trophy. No, but he may not see it that way. After Edmund left, Vivian stood holding the letter. 1 week, 7 days until everything changed. She went to find Grayson. His study door was closed, light visible underneath. She knocked. Come. He sat at his desk, Pentagon reports scattered across it, looked up when she entered. First time she'd come to his study. First time she'd sought him out. I received a letter, she said. She handed it to him. Watched his face as he read. Watched his expression harden. Watched his hand form a fist. Hadrian Cortez, he said quietly, dangerously. You know him. We've crossed paths. Edmund said you competed for a promotion. Edmund talks too much. But no real anger. Yes, 5 years ago, I received the promotion. He's held a grudge since. Is that why he's coming revenge? Partially, but also, Grayson stopped. Also what? He looked at her, really looked. Rule 5, no romantic relationships outside the marriage. I'm aware of what I signed. Cortez has a reputation. He's charming, politically connected, ambitious, also known for pursuing married women, for seeing if he can take what other men have. Understanding dawned. You think he's coming for me? I think he's coming to assess whether our marriage is real or strategic, and if it's strategic, to see if he can complicate things. Anger flared in Vivian's chest. I'm not a thing to be taken. I know that. He doesn't. They stood 3 feet apart, her in his study, him surrounded by military reports and the weight of duty. I can handle Senator Cortez, she said. I'm sure you can, but be careful, please. Is that an order, General? It's concern. Pause. Concern for your reputation or for me? Grayson had no answer, because he didn't know, or because he did and couldn't say it. Good night, Grayson, Vivian said. She left before he could respond, went back to her room in the East Wing. Across the house, Grayson sat at his desk. 1 week, 7 days until Hadrian Cortez arrived. 7 days until everything he'd carefully controlled began to unravel. He picked up the letter again, crumpled it, threw it toward the fireplace. Missed. It lay on the floor, accusation in cream-colored paper. Outside, the Atlantic crashed against rocks. Inside, Grayson Blackwell began to understand that some battles couldn't be won with strategy. Some required something he'd spent his entire life avoiding. Vulnerability. The week before Senator Hadrian Cortez arrived passed like watching a storm approach across the ocean. Inevitable, visible, unstoppable. Grayson found himself checking his watch more often, working later, running harder along the beach until his lungs burned and his legs shook. Anything to avoid thinking about what was coming. About a man who'd once been his rival entering his home, sleeping under his roof, sitting at his table, looking at his wife. Not his wife, his contract partner. The distinction mattered, except it didn't. Not anymore. Vivian spent the week preparing in her own way. She researched Hadrian Cortez with the thoroughness of someone who'd once written intelligence briefings for the State Department. Age 29. Senator's son, Georgetown educated. 6 years in congressional offices, climbing the ladder with the easy confidence of someone who'd never had to struggle. Appointment to the Defense Policy Advisory Committee at 27, youngest member in history. Handsome, charming, connected. And according to multiple sources, a collector of other men's wives. She found 3 separate scandals, all hushed up, all involving married women in political circles. One divorce that cost a general his career, another marriage that barely survived. Hadrian Cortez didn't just pursue married women. He destroyed marriages as a sport. On Tuesday, Grayson appeared at breakfast. This alone was unusual. They never ate breakfast together. The routine had held for 18 weeks. "We need to prepare," he said without preamble. Vivian looked up from her coffee. "For his arrival, we need to appear convincing." Convincing as what? As a real marriage. The word real hung between them like smoke. "What did you have in mind?" she asked carefully. "The seamstress is coming this afternoon. You'll need formal wear for the dinners. There's a military reception on day 2, congressional representatives. You'll need something more formal, more personal." Personal, as if anything about this arrangement was personal. "Fine," she said. "Anything else? We should practice being comfortable together in case he's watching." "Practice what exactly, Vaughn?" He looked uncomfortable. "Proximity, conversation, the appearance of familiarity." She almost smiled. "You want to rehearse being married. I want us to be prepared." "Of course you do." He left before she could say more. The seamstress arrived at 2 o'clock with an assistant and enough fabric samples to stock a boutique. But Grayson had insisted on accompanying her to an actual boutique in Boston. They drove in silence. 90 minutes of coastal highway, ocean on one side, forest on the other. Spring slowly winning its war against winter. Vivian watched him drive, his hands on the wheel, relaxed but controlled. Everything about him controlled. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I wanted to." "Why on I am?" "Because you'll be representing me at the reception. I should have a say in how you're presented." Presented. Like she was a weapon to be deployed, a chess piece to be positioned. "Of course," she said quietly. Something flickered in his peripheral vision. A glance her direction. Brief. "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" He had no answer. The boutique was in the back bay. Expensive, exclusive. The kind of place where they brought you champagne while you shopped. The owner recognized Grayson immediately. "General Blackwell, what an honor, and this must be Mrs. Blackwell." The wedding was so quiet we had no idea. The woman Marguerite, her nameplate read, clasped Vivian's hands. "We need formal wear," Grayson said. "For a military reception, something appropriate but distinctive." "Of course, I have several pieces that would be perfect." She led them to a private fitting room. Brought dress after dress, navy, charcoal, burgundy, all beautiful, all appropriate, all boring. Then she brought an emerald gown, silk, floor length, the color of deep forest or ocean depths, sophisticated, elegant, with a neckline that hinted at beauty without revealing it. "Try this one," Marguerite said. Vivian took it into the dressing room. The silk felt like water against her skin, cool, expensive. The kind of fabric that reminded you that luxury was real and you'd been living without it. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was familiar but strange. For the scandal, she'd worn dresses like this to State Department functions, had moved through embassies and political dinners with confidence. That woman had disappeared 6 months ago, but maybe she'd just been waiting. Vivian stepped out. Grayson had been sitting in a chair checking his phone. He looked up, just stood there, phone forgotten in his hand. Stared. Marguerite smiled knowingly. "Your husband has excellent taste, Mrs. Blackwell." Vivian turned to Grayson. "What do you think?" He couldn't seem to form words. His throat worked. Expression shifted through several emotions before settling on careful control. Finally, "That one." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." His voice had gone rough. Something in his eyes had changed. Heated. Hungry. Gone in a flash, but she'd seen it. Marguerite packed the dress with care. Added shoes. A clutch. Everything Vivian would need. In the car, silence resumed. But different now. Charged. Grayson's hands gripped the wheel tighter than necessary. Vivian caught him glancing at her. Quick looks. Like he couldn't help himself. "It's just a dress," she said. "I know." "Then why are you looking at me like that?" "Like what?" "Like I'm something other than your contractual obligation." His knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "You're not an obligation." "What am I then?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. They drove home in silence that spoke volumes neither was ready to hear. That evening after dinner, Grayson suggested they walk the grounds together. Cortez may want a tour, he said. We should be familiar with moving through the space as a couple. So practical, so strategic, so utterly Grayson. They walked through gardens just beginning to bloom, early daffodils, the scent of earth waking up after winter. Tell me about him, Vivian said. Your history with Cortez. Grayson was quiet for several steps. We were both being considered for the same strategic planning position 5 years ago. He had political connections. I had field experience. The promotion board chose me. And he took it personally. He takes everything personally. Hadrian Cortez doesn't lose gracefully. What should I expect? Charm, he'll be charming. Complimentary, he'll make you feel seen in ways I don't. The admission cost him something. Vivian stopped walking. Grayson, it's true I'm not good at this. At making people feel valued, I strategize. I execute. I don't connect. That's not entirely true. He looked at her. Isn't it? The coffee, the books with notes, the library heating you fixed, those are connections. Those are gestures. Sometimes gestures are how we connect when words fail us. They stood in the garden 3 feet apart, the distance between them be feeling like miles and inches all at once. He'll try to make you doubt this, Grayson said quietly. Doubt us. He'll offer alternatives, freedom, career opportunities, things I can't give you. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to be prepared. And because he stopped. Because what? Because I don't want to lose by default. If you leave, I want it to be because you chose to. Not because he manipulated you into thinking you had no other option. It was the closest thing to vulnerability she'd heard from him. I won't be manipulated, she said, by him or anyone else. I know, but his expression said he wasn't sure. They walked back to the house as the sun set over the Atlantic. Neither noticed Edmund watching from an upstairs window. The old butler smiled. Things were changing. Finally, Friday arrived with rain and the senator's black Mercedes. Vivian watched from an upstairs window as the car pulled up the circular drive. A man stepped out. Senator Hadrian Cortez looked exactly like his photographs. 29. Perfectly tailored suit, Italian probably custom. Dark hair styled with just enough casualness to look effortless. The kind of face that belonged on campaign posters. Handsome in the way politicians were handsome. Practiced. Performed. He smiled at the house like he already owned it. Grayson met him at the door. Vivian watched them shake hands, saw the extra second held, the competitive grip. Two men establishing dominance before a word was spoken. She descended the stairs. Both men looked up. Hadrian's expression shifted. Surprise, interest, calculation, all in the space of a heartbeat. Mrs. Blackwell, he said, climbing the steps to meet her. Hadrian Cortez, I've heard so much about you. He took her hand, brought it to his lips, a proper kiss, perfectly appropriate. Except for the way his eyes held hers, except for the way his thumb brushed her knuckles, except for the fraction of a second too long. Senator Cortez, she said evenly, welcome to our home. Our home. The words felt strange. Grayson's expression tightened. Please, Hadrian said, releasing her hand. Hadrian, we're going to be in close quarters for 4 days. No need for formality. His smile was warm, genuine almost, if you didn't look too closely at his eyes. Your estate is magnificent, Blackwell. Hadrian continued, turning to Grayson. Though I must say it looks rather more welcoming than when I visited for that briefing 3 years ago. Marriage suits it, or perhaps your wife does. Both, Grayson said flatly. Edmund appeared. Senator, I'll show you to your quarters. Thank you. I'll freshen up before dinner. He followed Edmund upstairs. Grayson and Vivian stood alone in the entrance hall. 4 days, she said quietly. 4 days. I can handle him. I know you can. But be careful anyway. It was the anyway that got her. The admission that his concern wasn't about capability. It was about caring. I will, she promised. Dinner was a masterclass in social warfare. Hadrian Cortez was good. Very good. He dominated conversation without seeming to. Asked questions that appeared interested, but probed for weaknesses. Complimented in ways that felt like assessments. Mrs. Blackwell, I heard you worked at the State Department. Such a shame about your father's situation. Though I suppose that's how you and the general connected through mutual need rather than romance. Subtle, poisoned. My husband and I connected through mutual respect. Vivian said smoothly, a quality that seems increasingly rare in Washington. Point to her. Of course, Hadrian smiled, though I notice you live in separate wings of the house. The staff mentioned it. Quite the arrangement for newlyweds. My work requires early mornings, Grayson said, his voice cold. Vivian keeps different hours. We're considerate of each other's schedules. How modern, though I can't imagine being married to someone as lovely as your wife and choosing to sleep separately. Heavy silence. Vivian placed her hand over Grayson's on the table. My husband is considerate, one of his many qualities. The lie came easily, the touch didn't. Grayson's hand tensed under hers, then relaxed, then turned, briefly squeezing her fingers. Thank you, the gesture said. Hadrian noticed everything. The rest of dinner proceeded with careful civility. When it ended, Hadrian excused himself. Early morning tomorrow. That base tour starts at 0700, doesn't it, General? 0600, Grayson corrected. Even better. Gives us more time together. Good night, Mrs. Blackwell. I look forward to getting to know you better. The words were innocent. The tone was not. After he left, Vivian and Grayson sat in silence. 3 days and 20 hours, she said. I'm counting. He's going to be a problem. He already is. Their hands were still touching on the table. Neither moved to break contact. Thank you, Grayson said quietly, for what you said about respect. I meant it. His eyes met hers. Did you, boy? Yes. Pause. I respect you too, Viv, more than I've respected anyone in a long time. It wasn't a declaration of love, but coming from Grayson Blackwell, it might as well have been. Good night, Grayson. Good night. She withdrew her hand. The loss of contact felt like cold water. Saturday morning, Grayson left at 5:30 for the base tour. Hadrian requested that Vivian show him the estate grounds. She couldn't refuse without appearing rude. They walked through gardens that were just beginning to wake for spring. Early crocuses pushing through soil, trees budding, the Atlantic visible beyond the formal hedges, gray and restless under cloudy skies. You have a beautiful home, Hadrian said. Thank you. Do you like it here? It's peaceful. Peaceful. Interesting word choice. Not happy, not fulfilled, peaceful. She didn't respond. They reached the rose garden. Empty now, waiting for summer. Hadrian stopped, turned to face her. Can I be honest with you, Vivian? Can I stop you? He smiled. I like you. You're sharp, direct. No games. Then I'll be direct. What do you want, Senator? The truth, I'm concerned about you. Concerned? Your marriage, it's clearly strategic. The separate wings, the careful distance at dinner last night, the way you barely look at each other except when you remember you're supposed to be married. You've been here less than 24 hours. That's quite the assessment. I'm observant, and I've known Grayson for years. He's brilliant, strategic, utterly controlled, and completely incapable of genuine human connection. He'll never love you. He'll never even see you. Not really. His words found marks she didn't want to acknowledge. You deserve better, Hadrian continued, his voice softening. You deserve someone who sees your intelligence, your strength, your beauty. He picked a white rose from a nearby bush, one of the early bloomers, handed it to her. Someone who would never take you for granted. Vivian held the rose. Behind them, unseen, Grayson stood at his study window. He'd returned early from the base tour, wanted to check on her. Make sure Hadrian wasn't. He saw them in the garden, saw Hadrian standing too close, saw him hand her the rose, saw her accept it, saw them talking, intimate, private. His hand clenched on the windowsill, knuckles white, face hardening. He couldn't hear what they were saying, didn't need to. The body language said everything. 23 minutes, Edmund would tell him later when Grayson asked how long they'd been out there. 23 minutes of Hadrian Cortez slowly, methodically trying to seduce his wife, his contract partner. The distinction had stopped mattering. Grayson forced himself to turn away from the window, forced himself to sit at his desk, forced himself to focus on briefing papers he couldn't read because the words blurred, because jealousy was acid in his throat, because fear was ice in his chest, because he was losing something he'd told himself he didn't want and couldn't do anything to stop it. That evening's dinner was worse. Hadrian seated himself at Grayson's right, the position of honor, of intimacy, called Vivian Viv instead of Mrs. Blackwell, referenced inside jokes from their garden conversation, made her laugh, actually laugh. Grayson's wineglass stem creaked under his grip. Viv was telling me about her thesis on North African trade alliances, Hadrian said. Fascinating work. Have you read it, General? No, Grayson said flatly. You should. Your wife is remarkably intelligent, though I suppose you already know that being married to her. The implication was clear. You don't know her at all. I'm well aware of my wife's capabilities, Grayson said. Are you? Because from what I understand, she's been essentially in isolation here for months. No professional engagement. No use of her expertise beyond dinner conversation. Truth. Damaging truth. Vivian set down her fork. Senator Cortez, I appreciate your concern, but it's misplaced. My husband has been very supportive. Has he, or has he simply provided you with a gilded cage? Grayson's chair scraped back as he stood. Everyone froze. This conversation is over, he said quietly. Dangerously. Hadrian stood as well, slowly. Is it, or is the truth just inconvenient? Vivian stood. Gentlemen, this is inappropriate. We're hosts and guests. Let's remember that. To Hadrian, thank you for your concern. It's unnecessary. To Grayson, please, sit down. Both men sat. The rest of the meal passed in glacial silence. When it ended, Hadrian excused himself. Early reception tomorrow. I should rest. Good night, Viv, General. After he left, Grayson poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, drank it, poured another. He's trying to get to you, Vivian said. It's working. Don't let him. Don't let him what? Point out the truth, that I've kept you isolated, that I've wasted your expertise, that this entire arrangement is, he stopped. Is what? She asked quietly. Wrong. It's wrong, all of it. Then why did you do it? Because I needed a wife, and you needed money, and it was supposed to be simple. His voice rose, actual emotion breaking through. But it's not simple. You made it not simple by being brilliant and challenging and making me actually want to come home at night, because dinner with you is better than anything else in my day. Silence. Vivian stared at him. Grayson stared at his scotch. I should go, he said quietly. He left her alone in the dining room, confused, shaken, heart racing. He'd as good as admitted he had feelings, and run away from them immediately. Sunday morning brought flowers. Vivian found them in her sitting room when she woke. Rare orchids, exotic, expensive, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly salary. The card read, for a woman who deserves beauty in her life, beauty you're not getting in this cold house. H.C. She was still holding the card when Grayson appeared. No knock. First time he'd ever entered her private quarters. He saw the flowers, read the card over her shoulder. What the hell is this, a gift? It's inappropriate. It's flowers. It's a declaration. His voice was hard, cold. Get rid of them. No, his eyes snapped to hers. What? I said no. They're the first beautiful thing I've received in this house that wasn't calculated by you or chosen by Edmund. They're mine. Something in Grayson broke. He grabbed the vase. Water sloshed. What are you doing? Vivian shouted. He didn't answer, just strode out of the room, down the stairs, through the house. She followed. Grayson stopped. Staff scattered. Edmund appeared, eyes wide. Grayson burst through the back doors into the garden, went straight to the fountain, hurled the entire arrangement into the water. Orchids floated like broken promises. Vivian caught up to him. Have you lost your mind? He rounded on her. He's pursuing you, in my house, under my roof. I'm not your property. You're my wife. On paper, she shouted back. This is a contract. Remember your words, your rules. I'm an obligation, a strategic asset, something you needed to check a box. The words hit like bullets. Grayson's face went white. Then his expression shuddered completely. The mask slamming back into place. You're absolutely right, he said quietly. Precisely. This is a contract. I apologize for overstepping. He walked away, left her standing by the fountain surrounded by drowning flowers and staff pretending not to have witnessed everything. Vivian stood there for a long time, until Edmund appeared with a blanket. Come inside, Mrs. Blackwell. You'll catch cold. She let him lead her in. That evening, a black velvet box appeared on her dinner plate. Inside, a diamond necklace. Easily $150,000 worth of diamonds. The card in Grayson's handwriting, since you claimed the orchids were your first gift here, this is more appropriate for a general's wife. Appropriate, not beautiful, not personal, appropriate. Vivian snapped the box shut, left it on the table, left the room. Grayson sat alone at the vast table and touched food in front of him, watching the door she'd walked through. The necklace sat between them. Beautiful, expensive, meaningless. He tried to buy what he couldn't earn and lost ground instead. Monday morning, Hadrian prepared to leave. His car waited in the drive. Luggage loaded, he found Vivian in the library. I wanted to say goodbye privately, he said. She set down her book. Goodbye, Senator. Hadrian, please. He sat across from her. Vivian, I meant what I said about you deserving better. I'm fine. Are you? 'Cause I've watched you this weekend. You're lonely, isolated, brilliant, and wasted. That's not your concern. I'm making it my concern. He pulled out a business card, handwritten number on the back. When you're ready to leave, and you will be call me. I'll help. No strings, just freedom. Freedom you're offering out of the goodness of your heart. Freedom I'm offering because I see you, really see you, which is more than your husband does. He stood, placed the card on the table between them. Think about it. You deserve a life, Vivian, not a contract. He left. The card stayed. From his study window, Grayson watched Hadrian's car drive away, saw him pause to look back at the house, saw him smile. The smile of a man who'd accomplished something. Grayson's hand formed a fist. He'd spent the weekend watching another man slowly, methodically seduce his wife. And he'd done nothing, because what could he do? She was right. This was a contract. He had no claim beyond paper. No right to jealousy, no grounds for possession, no hold except the one that would expire in 16 months. His phone rang. Colonel Aldrich. Nathaniel, free for lunch this week. I have some matters to discuss. Tomorrow, noon. Pentagon Officers Club. See you then. Tuesday, Grayson sat across from Aldrich at a corner table. The older man studied him with eyes that had seen 3 wars and countless men break. You look terrible. Thank you, sir. The Cortez visit didn't go well. It went exactly as he planned, which was to demonstrate that my marriage is strategic, to offer my wife an alternative, to prove I'm incapable of genuine human connection. Aldrich sipped his coffee. And is he right about which part in any of it? Grayson was quiet for a long time. Then the marriage started strategic. Contract, rules, clean boundaries. But somewhere in the last 5 months, it stopped being strategy. What is it now? I don't know. I only know that watching him with her made me want to break things. That the thought of her leaving makes my chest tight. That I stand at my window every morning at 6:15 because that's when she walks on the beach. That I buy coffee I hate because she likes it. That I can't sleep until I hear her door close because then I know she's safe. That sounds like love, son. I don't know how to love. I only know duty, protocol, control. Then you need to learn, quickly, because you're losing her. I've already lost her. She's right, this is a contract. It expires. She'll leave. Find someone who actually knows how to... He stopped. To what? To want someone without destroying it with control. To need someone without making it a mission. To love someone without... His voice broke. He covered it with a drink of water. Aldrich waited. When Grayson spoke again, his voice was steadier. There's a gala in 3 weeks, Congressional Military Appreciation. Cortez will be there. He'll make his move then. Public, calculated, and I'll have to watch. Unless you make your move first. How she thinks I see her as an obligation. She's not wrong. Then prove her wrong. Stop thinking strategically and start thinking emotionally. Stop controlling and start risking. Stop being General Blackwell and start being Grayson. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You've just spent 32 years refusing to acknowledge it. Your parents loved each other, died together. You saw it as weakness. But maybe it was the greatest strength they ever showed, choosing each other despite the risk. They left me alone. They gave you an example. One you've been running from ever since. Aldrich stood, placed a hand on Grayson's shoulder. 3 weeks until the gala. Use them. Talk to her. Really talk. Not about Sudan or Taiwan. About feelings, about what this has become. About what you want. What if she says no? Then you let her go with grace. But at least you'll know you tried. After Aldrich left, Grayson sat alone. 3 weeks. 21 days to figure out how to be human. How to be vulnerable. How to risk everything on a woman who had every reason to say no. He pulled out his phone, typed a message to the boutique in Boston. Deleted it, typed again. This time hit send. Need to order formal wear for Congressional Gala. For myself and Mrs. Blackwell. We'll bring her for fitting Thursday afternoon. Please arrange private appointment. If he was going to risk everything, he was going to do it properly. Starting with making sure she had a dress that made her feel the way she looked in that emerald gown. Like herself, like the woman he was terrified of losing. Like the woman he might actually love. The 3 weeks before the Congressional Military Appreciation Gala passed with the strange intensity of time running out. Grayson found himself doing things that made no strategic sense, leaving books on Vivian's chair. Military histories she'd mentioned wanting to read with notes in the margins, not corrections, conversations. Ensuring her favorite French roast was always brewed. Replacing the heating system in the library after she'd mentioned it being cold. Not through Edmund, personally. Standing there while contractors worked as if his presence would make it warm faster. Small gestures that said what he couldn't. I see you, I notice, I care. Vivian had noticed the changes. The coffee that appeared, the books with his handwriting, the library that suddenly stayed warm. She found herself watching for him, listening for his footsteps, timing her walks on the beach to coincide with his return from the Pentagon. They were circling each other, getting closer, neither willing to close the final distance. On Thursday of the first week, Grayson appeared at breakfast again. I have an appointment in Boston this afternoon. I'd like you to come. You saw, for what? The gala. We need appropriate attire. I have dresses. You need something that's yours, not something I bought, not something Edmund selected, yours. The distinction mattered. She went. The boutique was the same one from before. Marguerite greeted them like old friends. General Blackwell, Mrs. Blackwell, how wonderful to see you again. That emerald gown was absolutely stunning on you. I trust it served its purpose. Vivian thought of the dress hanging unworn in her closet, of the weekend with Hadrian Cortez, of orchids and fountains and diamond necklaces rejected. It was beautiful, she said diplomatically. We need something for the congressional gala, Grayson said. Something special. Marguerite's eyes gleamed. I have just the thing. Recent acquisition from Paris. Arrived last week. She disappeared into the back. Returned carrying a gown that made Vivian's breath catch. Deep sapphire blue. Almost the color of midnight ocean. Silk and subtle beading that caught light like stars on water. Elegant, sophisticated, the kind of dress that didn't announce itself but commanded attention anyway. Try it, Marguerite urged. In the dressing room, Vivian slipped into silk that felt like moonlight. The dress fit perfectly, molded to her body in ways that were elegant rather than provocative. Made her look powerful, beautiful. Herself, she stepped out. Grayson had been reviewing something on his phone. He looked up. The phone slipped from his hand, clattered on marble floor. He didn't notice, just stared. Viv, he breathed, not Mrs. Blackwell, not even Vivian. Viv, like intimacy, like possession, like prayer. Is it appropriate? She asked. It's extraordinary. The word was different this time, more personal, more true. Marguerite beamed. I'll wrap it immediately. While she was gone, Grayson retrieved his phone. Didn't look at it. You should wear that diamond necklace, he said quietly. The one I gave you. I left it on the table. I know. I put it in your jewelry box. It belongs with you. Grayson, I'm not trying to buy you Viv. I don't know what I'm trying to do. Everything I do lately makes no sense. What do you mean? He looked at her, really looked. I mean that I bought you a necklace worth more than most people's houses and you left it on the table. Because what you actually wanted was a flower. One flower, from a man who sees you. His throat worked. And I can't be that man because I don't know how. I only know how to control and strategize and maintain distance. But the distance is killing me. Before she could respond, Marguerite returned. The moment shattered. They drove home in silence that felt like screaming. This here. Week 2 brought subtle shifts. Grayson started having breakfast in the morning room instead of his study. Not with Vivian, but 20 minutes before she came down instead of an hour. So that when she arrived, the coffee was fresh. The newspaper was folded to the international section she preferred. His empty plate was still there, evidence that he'd been present, evidence that he was trying. Dinners evolved too, still strategy sessions, still policy debates, but personal questions slipped in. What made you choose Georgetown, he asked one night. My mother. She wanted me to understand power, not just how to wield it, but how to temper it with wisdom. Did you understand power and temper it with wisdom? She smiled. I'm still learning. So am I. Another night. Why the military? She asked. Family expectation. But also, he paused. After my parents died, I needed structure. Rules. Something that made sense when nothing else did. And did it make sense? For a long time. Until recently. What changed? He looked at her across the table. 3 feet between them now, not 18. You did. The admission hung in the air. Neither knew what to do with it. Week 3 arrived with spring in full bloom. The gardens exploded with color. daffodils, tulips, early roses. Vivian spent hours outside, walking, thinking, trying to understand what was happening. She'd signed a contract. 24 months. Clear terms. No emotional complications. But emotions didn't respect contracts. Emotions grew in silence. In coffee appearing, in books with margin notes, in hands touching across dinner tables, in the way Grayson looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. Thursday evening, 1 week before the gala, he knocked on her sitting room door. 10 o'clock. Late for him. Come in. He entered like someone invading enemy territory. Stood awkwardly. Didn't know where to put his hands. Tomorrow night, Hadrian will be at the gala. I know. He'll approach you. Probably. I need you to... He stopped. Started again. Rule 5 states no romantic entanglements outside the marriage. I'm aware of what I signed. This isn't about the contract. Then what is it about? He paced, 3 steps to the window, 3 steps away. Your agitation. I don't want him touching you. Why not? The question landed like artillery. Grayson stopped, faced her. Because for the last 5 months, I've stood at my window every morning at 6:15 because that's when you walk on the beach. I've watched you every single morning. His voice was rough, unsteady. I buy coffee I hate because you like French roast. I replace heating systems because you mentioned being cold. I read your thesis on North African trade policy twice because I wanted to understand how you think. He moved closer. I can't focus in briefings because I'm thinking about what we'll discuss at dinner. I can't sleep until I hear your door close because then I know you're safe. Closer still. I'm terrified of tomorrow night because I don't know what I'll do if he touches you again. If he offers you freedom. If you realize that you could have more than this cold house and a man who doesn't know how to want you properly. He was 3 feet away now, voice breaking. So no. This isn't about Rule 5 or the contract. This is about me losing my mind over the thought of losing you. Silence. Vivian's heart thundered. You've had 5 months to say this, she said quietly. Why now? Why when another man shows interest? The question stopped him. That's not... Isn't it, would you be here if Hadrian never came, if no one else wanted me? Grayson had no answer, because the truth was complicated, because jealousy had clarified what he'd been avoiding. I think you should go, Vivian said. Pain flashed across his face. Viv, please, just go. He left. The door closed quietly. Vivian slid down to the floor, back against the door, drew her knees to her chest, let the tears come. Because she was in love with a man who might only want her because someone else did. Because she didn't know if his feelings were real or reactive. Because tomorrow night at the gala everything would come to a head. And she had no idea what she wanted anymore. Friday arrived cold and clear. The Kennedy Center gleamed in Boston's spring evening. Red carpet, photographers, 600 of Washington's military and political elite gathering for the annual Congressional Military Appreciation Gala. Grayson and Vivian arrived separately. His idea. Military protocol, he'd said. Translation, cowardice. Distance, safety. Vivian's car pulled up first. She stepped out in a sapphire gown. Diamond necklace catching light. Hair swept up. Elegant. Powerful. Beautiful. Cameras flashed. Mrs. Blackwell, over here. She smiled. Posed. Played the part. Inside, she was breaking. Grayson's car arrived 5 minutes later. He wore his dress uniform. Stars gleaming, medals across his chest, every inch the decorated general. He saw her on the steps, stopped breathing. She turned. Their eyes met. For one moment, the cameras and crowd disappeared. Just them. He climbed the steps, offered his arm. You wore it, he said quietly. The necklace. It seemed appropriate. You're breathtaking. You said that before. I meant it then. I mean it more now. They entered together. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, orchestra, flowers and silk and the scent of power. They worked the room as a unit. Admiral Pearson. General Blackwell, Mrs. Blackwell, wonderful to see you both. Senator Martinez. Vivian, I heard you consulted on the Sudan situation. Brilliant work, Congressman Webb. General, your wife's policy brief was exceptional. You're lucky to have such a partner. Partner. The word followed them. For the first time, they weren't performing. They were actually functioning as one. Grayson's hand on her lower back, possessive but gentle. Vivian's hand on his arm, claiming him as much as he claimed her. They danced the first waltz. Not practiced, not performed, real. Grayson held her close, closer than appropriate, closer than necessary. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for last night, for ambushing you. You spoke truth. Badly timed truth. Is there such a thing? Yes, when it makes you cry. She looked up sharply. How did you? I stood outside your door for 20 minutes, heard you crying. Wanted to break it down and he stopped. And what? And hold you. Tell you I'm an idiot. That this isn't about Cortez. That I've been falling for months and was too scared to admit it. The music swelled. They moved in perfect synchronization. Grayson, you don't have to respond. I just needed you to know before he didn't finish. Because across the ballroom, Senator Hadrian Cortez had arrived. White suit, perfect smile, moving through the crowd like he owned it. His eyes found Vivian. He smiled wider, started walking toward them. The dance ended. Hadrian materialized at Vivian's elbow. Mrs. Blackwell, radiant as ever? Grayson's expression hardened. Senator Cortez, Vivian said evenly. Hadrian, please. We're friends now, aren't we? After my lovely visit to your home. Emphasis on your, not your and the generals. Yours. May I have this dance? Hadrian asked. It wasn't really a question. In this setting with 600 people watching, refusal would cause talk. Vivian looked at Grayson. His face was stone, but his eyes said everything. Don't, please don't. One dance, she said. Hadrian led her to the floor. Grayson watched like a man watching his execution. The orchestra played a waltz. Hadrian pulled her closer than appropriate. You look stunning, he said. Though I expected the emerald gown. This is new. My husband chose it. Did he? How unlike the cold general to notice such things. Perhaps you're thawing him. Perhaps. They danced in silence for a moment. Then, Vivian, I meant what I said at the estate, about helping you. Hadrian, I've already done it. Your family's entire debt, 4.8 million, cleared, transferred from a discretionary fund this afternoon. You're free. She stumbled. He caught her and, what did you say? You're free. The debt that trapped you in this arrangement. Gone. You can leave any time. No financial consequences. No obligation. Why would you? Because I'm in love with you. The words dropped like bombs. And unlike your husband, I'm not afraid to say it. I see you, Vivian. Your intelligence. Your strength. Your beauty. Everything he takes for granted. The music continued. Vivian's mind raced. Free. After 5 months of obligation, she was free. Could leave. Could start over. I've arranged a position for you, Hadrian continued. State Department, Middle East Policy Advisor. Starts next month. Everything you wanted. Your career back. Your life back. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Leave with me tonight. Not to my bed. I'm not that kind of man. But leave this cold marriage. This cold man. Choose yourself for once. The song ended. Hadrian raised her hand slowly. Everyone watching. Brought her gloved knuckles to his lips. Kissed them. Held the kiss. 4 seconds. An eternity. Cameras flashed. Whispers rippled. Across the ballroom, Grayson stood frozen, wineglass in his hand, watching the woman he loved being kissed by another man. The glass cracked. Hairline fracture. Then another, blood seeped between his fingers. He didn't notice. Set the glass down carefully. Started walking. The crowd parted. General Blackwell, crossing a ballroom, had the force of a military advance. Vivian saw him coming. Oh God. His face was controlled, blank, but his eyes burned. He stopped 3 feet from them. Cortez, a word. We're in the middle of the dance floor, General. I'm aware. Step aside. Dangerous quiet. Every eye in the ballroom watching. Hadrian smiled. Careful, Blackwell. Your jealousy is showing. Ironic for a marriage of convenience. Gasps. Public. Scandalous. Calculated. What did you say? Grayson's voice dropped to lethal quiet. The entire Pentagon knows. Strategic marriage to meet promotion requirements. Very clever. Except it violates about 6 military ethics codes. Someone should investigate. More gasps. Vivian stepped between them. Grayson, not here, please. He didn't look at her. Couldn't. If he looked at her, he'd break. You want to discuss ethics, Grayson said to Hadrian. Let's discuss how you've spent months pursuing another man's wife. How you violated hospitality. How you manipulated her with false generosity. False, Hadrian's voice rose, ensuring people heard. I cleared her family's $4.8 million debt. That's very real. I'm offering her freedom from this sham. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Vivian's face went white. You what? She whispered. I freed you, darling. From obligation. From him. Grayson's hands clenched, but his voice stayed deadly calm. Buying someone's freedom isn't love, it's acquisition. You see her as territory to conquer because I have her and you don't. I see her as a woman wasted on a man who treats her like a strategic asset. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know she lives in a separate wing. I know you schedule her like a briefing. I know she's lonely in a house full of rooms and a marriage full of rules. Truth. Public truth. Devastating truth. Grayson had no defense because it was all true, or had been. Vivian's voice cut through. Stop, both of you. She turned to the watching crowd. Please, excuse us. Continue enjoying the evening. To Grayson and Hadrian, terrace now. She walked out, both men followed. The terrace overlooked Boston Harbor. Night air, city lights, privacy finally. Vivian rounded on both of them. I won't be fought over like property. Where Hadrian started, that's exactly my, shut up. Both men froze. She'd never raised her voice before. You, she pointed at Hadrian, paid my family's debts without asking, without permission. That's not love. That's control with better packaging. You're trading one cage for another. I was trying to help. By making me owe you instead of him, by removing my choice, that's not freedom. That's a different kind of obligation. Hadrian's smile faded. She turned to Grayson. And you, 5 months of walls, 5 months of Mrs. Blackwell and separate wings and treating me like a useful consultant. Then suddenly you care because someone else does. That's not love. That's possession. You're right, Grayson said quietly. She stopped. Hadn't expected agreement. You're absolutely right, he continued, about all of it. Hadrian watched, sensing loss. I'm stepping aside, he said quietly. You're right, Vivian. I overstepped. I'm sorry. Wishy, to Grayson, she deserves better than both of us, but maybe you can become better. I can't. He left. Grayson and Vivian alone. Silence. 30 seconds that felt like hours. Say something, she said. I'm terrified. Of what? Of this, of you, of needing someone so badly it feels like drowning. He moved closer. I've commanded soldiers, made life or death decisions, stared down enemy fire. But you, the thought of losing you, that terrifies me more than anything in my life. His voice cracked. I watched my parents die because they chose duty over safety, followed orders they knew were wrong. And I learned emotion gets you killed. Love is vulnerability. Both are things I can't afford. But then you walked into that library 5 months ago and every rule I made you dismantled, just by existing, just by being brilliant and stubborn and refusing to be controlled. He was 1 foot away now. I don't know how to need someone. Don't know how to want someone without destroying it with control. Don't know how to love someone without making it a mission to complete. Voice breaking completely. But I'm trying. God help me, I'm trying. He stepped closer, inches apart. I don't want separate wings anymore. Don't want silent dinners or scheduled conversations or contracts with expiration dates. I don't want you to be an obligation or an asset or a strategic alliance. I want to wake up next to you. Want to argue about policy over coffee. Want you to call me on my bullshit and challenge my plans and remind me there's more to life than duty. Tears streaming down his face. I want you to be my wife, really my wife, not because of debt or promotion or any damn contract. Because you want to be. Because this could be real. His hands trembled. And if you say no, I'll let you go. Terminate the contract. Keep the debts cleared anyway, no strings. Let Hadrian give you the State Department position. Let you have the life you deserve. I'll hate every second, but I'll do it because you're right. You deserve better than a cage, even if it means losing you. You'd really let me go, she whispered. I'd really let you go. She saw the truth in his eyes, the pain, the love, the fear. I knew, she said quietly. What? I knew you were watching me for months. The coffee appearing, the books with your notes. The accidental meetings in the library. I knew, Grayson. His eyes widened. Edmund's terrible at being subtle, and you have patterns. Why didn't you say anything? Because it meant you cared, even when you wouldn't admit it to yourself. Those small gestures, they were you trying, in the only way you knew how. She stepped closer. I fell in love with those moments, with the man who asked my opinion on Sudan, who learned how I take my coffee. Who chose that sapphire dress because he knew it would make me feel beautiful? Her hand touched his face. I don't want Hadrian. I don't want the State Department. I don't want freedom from you. 1 inch apart. I want the man beneath the uniform, the one who's terrified and honest and trying so hard to be good at something he was never taught. I want you, Grayson Blackwell, the real you. He pulled her against him, kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. 5 months of distance collapsing in one moment. She kissed him back. Desperate, honest, real. When they broke apart, foreheads touching both, breathing hard. I'm going to fail at this, he whispered. I'm going to revert to old habits, forget to talk about feelings. I know. I'll want to control things. I'll remind you not to. I love you, messily, imperfectly, but honestly. I love you too, and that terrifies me. He smiled, actually smiled. Good. We'll be terrified together. They kissed again, softer, longer, full of promise. They didn't return to the gala, left through a side entrance, drove home in Grayson's car. His hand found hers, laced fingers, didn't let go the entire drive. At the estate, they went straight to his study. Grayson opened the safe, retrieved the contract. 12 pages, 15 rules, 2 signatures, the agreement that had brought them together, the cage they'd both lived in. He carried it to the library fireplace. They stood together, contract between them. Are you sure, he asked. Are you? I've never been more sure of anything. Together they fed pages to flames, watched Rule 1 burn, separate quarters. Rule 2, no interference. Rule 5, no outside relationships. All 15 rules curling to ash. The signatures last. Sterling to Blackwell, Blackwell to Sterling, transforming, disappearing, becoming something new. When the last ember died, Grayson turned to her. No contract, no expiration date, no rules about wings or distance. Just us figuring it out. That's terrifying. He pulled her close, but less terrifying than losing you. They stood in the library where they'd danced, where they'd debated, where they'd slowly, painfully fallen in love. Come with me, Grayson said. He led her upstairs, not to the east wing, not to the west wing, to the master bedroom, neutral territory. At the door he paused. Viv, she kissed him. Answer enough. The door closed behind them. Morning came with sunlight and the sound of ocean waves. Vivian woke first. Grayson lay beside her, face peaceful, arm around her waist. She watched him sleep. This man who'd been so cold, so controlled, who'd learned to thaw, who'd chosen her, who'd risked everything. His eyes opened. Morning, he said softly. Morning. I was afraid you'd change your mind overnight. I was afraid you would, he pulled her closer. Never, you're stuck with me now. Promise, promise, a knock at the door. Breakfast is ready when you are. And might I say it's about damn time. Edmund's voice carried laughter. They laughed too. 2 weeks later, news broke. Senator Hadrian Cortez under investigation for campaign finance violations. Ethics Committee discovered his discretionary fund used illegal donations, including the money used to clear Vivian's family debts. The payment was reversed by court order. Hadrian received Senate censure, 6 months suspension. His political career damaged but not destroyed. The final report included his statement, I overstepped in my pursuit of Mrs. Blackwell. General Blackwell is the better man. I wish them happiness. Grace in defeat. But there was more. Late one evening, 3 weeks after the investigation concluded, Vivian found an envelope on her desk. Bank statement, Sterling family accounts, debt balance $0. She stared at it, walked to Grayson's study. He looked up from his work. The debt, she said, it's cleared. I thought Hadrian's payment was reversed. It was. Then how understanding dawned. You paid it when the day after the investigation started, before the reversal. That's $4.8 million. I'm aware, but fine. Why didn't you tell me? He set down his pen. Because I needed you to choose me freely. Not because of money, not because of debt, just me. If you'd known, it would have complicated that choice. She crossed to him, stood between him and the desk. You paid my family's debt, after everything with Hadrian, after I said I didn't want to be bought. You're not bought, you're free. Whether you stay with me or not, that debt is gone, no strings. That was always the plan. Tears in her eyes. You're impossible. I'm in love with you. Same thing. She kissed him. Thank you, she whispered against his lips. You're welcome. Vivian's father, Senator William Sterling, received a plea deal, testified against co-conspirators, house arrest instead of prison. He called her. Vivian, I don't deserve forgiveness. No, you don't, but I deserve peace. I'm choosing to build a future, not dwell in your failure. Your husband, he helped negotiate my deal through his Pentagon contacts. Why, him? Because he loves me and knows you're still my father despite everything. I'm sorry for all of it. I know. Be better now. That's all you can do. She hung up. Grayson held her while she cried. Justice served. Not perfect, but real. 3 months after the gala, their lives transformed. Vivian accepted a State Department consulting position. Remote work, her choice, her terms. She and Grayson co-authored a policy paper on military diplomatic integration, published in Foreign Affairs. Created waves. Grayson received promotion to Major General, youngest in his rank, but he turned down an assignment that would have required deployment. I'm not choosing duty over you, he told Colonel Aldrich. Not ever again. Your parents would be proud, Aldrich said. Not of your rank, of you choosing to live. Their routine changed completely. Morning coffee together on the terrace, strategy sessions that became conversations that became laughter. The East Wing converted to her office, the West Wing to his, the master bedroom theirs. Edmund smiled constantly. The estate felt alive, warm, home. 6 months after the gala, Grayson planned something. He cleared the library, brought in candles, string quartet, photos of their year together. Vivian entered shocked. What is this, a do-over? He wore his dress uniform. She wore the sapphire gown. 5 months ago, we signed a contract, he said, made a strategic alliance, agreed to 24 months of mutual convenience. I remember. I want to nullify that contract. Her breath caught. Fear. Then he dropped to one knee, pulled out a ring box, not the platinum band from City Hall. An engagement ring, sapphire center stone, surrounded by diamonds. Vivian Sterling Blackwell. You crashed into my controlled life and destroyed every wall I built. You made me feel when I was determined not to. You made me need when I'd sworn off weakness. You made me love when I was certain I couldn't. Voice thick with emotion. I vow to wake up every morning grateful you chose me. I vow to never take another silent dinner. I vow to argue with you about policy because your mind is the sexiest thing about you, and that's saying something. I vow to be terrified every day that I might lose you and to let that fear make me better, not controlling. Tears streaming. I vow to love you messily, imperfectly, but honestly, forever. Will you marry me for real this time? Vivian crying, laughing. Yes, God, yes. I'll marry you 1,000 times. He slid the ring on, stood, kissed her while the quartet played, and Edmund watched from the doorway with tears in his old eyes. 2 months later, they married again. Blackwell Estate Gardens, overlooking the Atlantic. 25 guests, intimate, real. Colonel Aldrich officiated. Lily stood as maid of honor. Edmund gave Vivian away. Someone has to, he said, and I've watched you become family. The ceremony was everything City Hall wasn't. Warm, emotional, witnessed by people who loved them. Grayson's vows. Vivian, 5 months ago, I stood in City Hall and promised you 24 months. Today, I promise forever. You taught me that control is overrated, that vulnerability is strength, that love is worth the risk of falling. I promise to choose you every day, to listen more than I command, to hold you when words fail me, to be your partner, not your general. I love you, completely. Vivian's vows. Grayson, 5 months ago, I needed security. Today, I choose love. You showed me that strength can be gentle, that discipline can be devotion, that beneath armor is the most beautiful heart I've ever known. I promise to challenge you when you forget to feel, to remind you to laugh, to be patient when old habits surface, to choose you every day. I love you, endlessly. The kiss, not their first, but their first is truly married. Applause, joy, happy tears. The reception lasted into evening. Dancing on the lawn, Grayson twirled Vivian under stars. Aldrich toasted to the worst-kept secret in the Pentagon, that love conquers all, even military discipline. Edmund, to the young man who finally learned to feel and the young woman who taught him. Lily, you did it. You saved us and saved yourself. Vivian. No, I found home. 1 year later, Blackwell Estate. Morning, Vivian woke in their bedroom. Grayson already awake watching her. Morning wife. Morning husband. Routine now, beautiful routine. Coffee on the terrace together. She reviewed State Department briefs. He reviewed Pentagon briefings. They discussed, debated, laughed. Partners in everything. Edmund brought breakfast. Mail General, Mrs. Blackwell. Letter from Lily. Graduating MIT. Job offer from NASA. Thanks to you both, I'm living my dreams. Can't wait to visit next month. Letter from Hadrian. Engaged to fellow policy advisor. Found my own partner. Hope you're insufferably happy. They were. Vivian set down the letters. Took Grayson's hand. I have something to tell you. His eyes sharpened. What? I'm pregnant. Silence. Then his face transformed. Joy. Pure joy. Really. Really, about 7 weeks. He pulled her into his arms, held her like she was made of glass and dreams. We're having he whispered. We're having a. They sat on the terrace overlooking the Atlantic, holding each other, planning nurseries and futures and all the terrifying beautiful things that came with new life. 18 months after their real wedding. The Blackwell Estate Nursery, 3 in the morning. Grayson held their daughter, Catherine Aldrich Blackwell, 3 months old, named for the families that made them, for the legacy of choosing love. She slept in his arms, tiny, perfect. Vivian watched from the nursing chair, her heart so full it hurt. You're a natural, she said. I'm terrified I'll break her. You won't. How do you know? Because you were terrified of loving me too, and you learned. He smiled, sat beside her, baby between them. Do you ever regret it, he asked, that day in the library, signing the contract? Every day. He looked up, hurt. She smiled. I regret that it took us 5 months of misery to admit what we felt. I regret the time wasted. But the contract itself, no, because it brought us here. She touched his face. From contract to commitment, from strangers to soulmates, from obligation to choice. Catherine stirred. Made small sounds. Vivian took her, nursed her. Grayson watched his family. Wife and daughter, everything he'd never known he wanted, everything he'd almost lost through fear. I love you, he said. I know, but say it anyway. He smiled. I love you, Viv, more every day. The clock chimed 3:30. Morning was coming. Another day, another chance to choose each other. Catherine finished nursing, fell back asleep. They tucked her into the crib, stood watching her. This tiny human they'd created, this legacy of love. We did it, Vivian whispered. We did. Are you happy? Grayson pulled her close. I'm more than happy. I'm home. They walked back to their bedroom, leaving the door cracked, baby monitor on, ready for the next cry, the next feeding, the next moment, ready for everything. 2 years after their real wedding. Family portrait being taken, professional photographer. Blackwell Estate grounds. Grayson in civilian clothes. Vivian in flowing dress, Catherine toddling between them. Look at the camera, the photographer called. Catherine grabbed both their hands. They looked at each other instead. The photo captured everything. Love, partnership, legacy. The photographer smiled. Perfect. Later, the photo would sit in the library, next to wedding photos, next to Catherine's newborn pictures, next to the future they were building, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one love that started as contract and became forever. Edmund found them that evening, on the terrace, sunset. Catherine asleep in Vivian's arms. Dinner will be ready shortly, he said. Thank you, Edmund. The old butler paused. If I may, sir, Mrs. Blackwell, you've made this house a home. For the first time in 40 years, these walls hold warmth. Thank you. After he left, Vivian looked at Grayson. We did that. We did. Catherine stirred, opened eyes, smiled at her father. Grayson's heart melted. Every time, every single time. What are you thinking? Vivian asked. That I signed a contract for 24 months, burned it at 5, and got forever instead. Best deal you ever made. Best decision I ever made, choosing you, every day, over and over. The sun set over the Atlantic, painting sky in oranges and purples and golds. The Blackwell Estate stood strong, no longer a fortress, a home, filled with laughter and arguments and love and life, filled with family, with choice, with forever. And in the library, the contract's ashes were long cold, but what rose from them burned eternal. Love that conquered fear, partnership that conquered loneliness, choice that conquered obligation, from arrangement to forever, from contract to commitment, from cold to warm, from alone to home.